ramp with super mega air. What happened out there? My gooseneck slipped. My handlebars moved forward.
Joe Johnson alors.
To anybody else, Joe Johnson was just another neighborhood kid, but he wasn't.
Just such a humble kid that came in and was just busting out.
You know, I heard all these, all the stories about this guy, Joe Johnson.
Yeah, of course, Joe Johnson.
He was our guy. He was the guy that we all rooted for because he was one of us. And, he's just a, swamp Yankee like the rest of us who made good. He got on Team Haro.
But seeing him ride in his backyard, to be there, that was incredible. I mean, a lot of people in the scene know Joe from Haro in his later GT days, but seeing this kid that just, real quiet kid, get on a bike and bam, bigger than life.
Joe, backyards at Joe's. I hear like, oh yeah, there's some ramp in Stoughton. I'm like, oh, all right, let's go check this out. And so I ride over the next town over and the backwoods of Stoughton.
And we get into this neighborhood and there's this ranch house. And we pull up, and we go in the backyard, and there is this just BMX freestyle paradise. This quasi quarter pipe, semi half pipe, built onto the back of the house with a deck. This roll-in, if I remember, went up into the woods.
I mean, Joe had this rickety extension that ran up into the woods. It was like he was the only one. Him and TJ were the only one light enough to run up and down this thing, and they were hitting the ramp at like top speed. Joe's getting like 12 foot doing, 1-footed inverts like over the roof of his house. We were just absolutely dumbfounded.
Wendy Osborne came to Joe Johnson's house for a shoot, and the ramps were full of riders, but it was pretty clear at some point that everybody should step aside because this was just the most amazing ramp session we had ever seen.
A man has got to realize what his limits are. And at that point, I set my bike aside, sat on the roof of Joe's house, and just said to myself, is this for real?
That one particular photo shoot is probably at the top of my list, with a handful of others maybe.
Looking at the contact sheets and we're just like, we gotta run that one big, we gotta run that one big. And it was tough. During those edit sessions on the photos we were gonna run in each issue, everyone got to bring out a different colored Sharpie and we'd like make dots on the slides and dots on the contact sheets before we go and develop the black and white. And there's just tons of dots on everything. And it was always like, would take so much longer when you have too many good ones to choose from,
And there's one shot where the tire, it's just, it's like you could bite the tire. And through the spokes, with the motion and everything, are the people on the other side on the ramp. And I love that picture. There was a lot of motion and there was a lot, all his moves were maxed and pushed and...
I think he just didn't have the fear or he didn't care.
Joe comes flying in and hits that ramp, and I had never seen a human being go so high on a wooden quarter pipe in my life. I was stupefied watching this kid ride. I mean, it's just sheer talent and just, it was pure. Because there was no pretense of the factory rider. There was no elitism or I'm the best there is. It was just this kid on his bike on a ramp in his backyard.
The thing about it was his riding was effortless. And, you're always heard about Brian Blythe, or you see one of the videos or something like that. You think about how smooth these guys were. But Joe was, it was like, it was just truly effortless, and there was nothing that made sense because I would try to do stuff that Joe did, and it was really, really hard.
I think Joe perfected the high air. There were a lot of riders that were getting height, but Joe, come on. Hoffman got some crazy air, Kevin gets some crazy air, but back then, There wasn't anybody that could touch Joe.
You know, I never dreamed of doing it on vert. I mean, I take that back. At some point I did, but when we learned it, there was no way. And then Joe turned it up and ended up doing doubles. And you know, one of the smoothest riders ever, Joe. I looked up to Joe when he was an amateur and I was pro.
Well, I saw Joe trying tail whips when we were in Europe. Like we were over there, like on the Danube, like a topless beach off the freaking Danube River.
Dennis and I were in this warehouse. We're riding all day, and I'm mainly working on this tail whip all day. And he just thought it was a joke. You know, he didn't think it was worth the effort, and it's not going to lead to anything. It's not, you know, it's not going to be a trick. That's worth trying. You're not going to be able to pull it off. And come on, Johnson, give that thing up. Let's go. Come on, let's have some fun. Let's do some airs. You know, that sort of thing. I can remember, you know, telling him that day that no, I think it probably looked. It felt like it was close, but the way he was seeing it, it was probably the reality that it was just. I was a lot further away from landing it than I thought. But for me, it felt like I was pretty close to landing it. You know. But yeah, my weight was. You know, it was just way too towards the ramp, and I was vertical, probably. You know, for the most part, it's a lot of it's instinct. You know, as the bike is coming around, your feet are just like magnets to the pedals. You know, they just seem to know where they're supposed to go almost. You know, so when the bike's coming around, and you know early on. You feel like you're gonna pull it, or you know pretty quickly whether or not you need to bail out or not. But you're looking to see how fast the frame's coming around and how much time you have before you're gonna hit the ground, and you kind of figured out how that timing's gonna work out, and balancing that between how your weight's positioned relative to the coping and all these things. The main thing is your weight. You know, if your weight isn't in the right place, you know, all bets are off. And like the double tail whip was even more. It was the same thing as running the single tail whip, where I could never commit to the trick, leaning in. And I can remember Dave Mira when Dave was learning that trick too. He kept. You know, he and I, we talked about it a bunch. You know, where you just got to commit. You have to lean in. You have to lean in, and you know, and then that was the thing. That was the thing for you know, a lot of the tricks in BMX really is you need to commit to the trick and think and know you're going to pull it.
I can't remember how many times he had tried it in the past, but it was pretty obvious that because other people were starting to do the tail whip now, it was obvious that Joe needed to take it to another level and do the double tail whip.
Speaking of the tail whip, think about how that trick became what it is now. Is Brian Blyther invented the flatland trick, the tail whip. He's a vert rider. Dominguez did this fly out tail whip thing, and I did this tail whip air. If it started with a vert rider, Blyther doing it on the ground.
A lot of people, yeah. You know, I was probably the first one to do the tail whip above vert. Oh. Might have been on my back on the deck, but. Yeah, so it goes Blyther, Dominguez, then me, then Joe. That's funny.
And it was a fun victory for New England. You know, it was. This is it. It's our boy.
You know, hats off to Mr. Johnson for pulling that one off.
I feel so naive now knowing that like triple whips have been pulled and quad whip jumps, and I could like do so many tail whip flatland tricks. It just seems so naive, but it didn't seem like it was gonna work to me. I just remember thinking like, yeah, keep it up, buddy. Good luck with that one. and then like he's double whipping a few comps later. You know, I was like, okay, well, oops, kind of missed that one.